Hello, everybody. It's that confusing first few moments. And I know I say this every time, but it's the same every time. When you show up on YouTube and you don't know if anybody can see or hear what you're saying because your recording that you're watching hasn't showed up yet. I'm just reading your comment, Grapevine. Thanks for your kind words. I do really appreciate that. So while we are waiting for more people to arrive, notice I said Nakshatra talk and special announcement. So we're going to hold off on the special announcement until more people appear, but plenty of time for Nakshatra talk. Questions in general that people may have. And in addition to that, I do ask that you please refrain from asking me to interpret your horoscope for you. I don't do that. And I say this at the beginning of every gathering. I don't do that because really, in order to do that, I need your full horoscope in front of me. Otherwise, I'm doing you a disservice. Okay. So just waiting. I'm seeing a couple of people here. Until people say hello, I never know if I'm just here by myself or I see Grapevine is here, and hoping other people are here as well. Noticing the numbers kind of going up, down, people popping in, then disappearing, popping in and disappearing. So there we go. Yep, there's more people here. Somebody else just said hello. So I know there are actual people here. So we did this a couple of weeks ago where we had Nakshatra talk. So people could ask questions about specific Nakshatras. So feel free to do the very same right now. Okay. Notice I got my headset on again. This time of year, I get a lot of allergies. And if I have my external microphone set up, I end up stressing my voice out by talking too loudly. And this gives me an opportunity to just kind of keep it quieter, but yet still make sure that I'm heard. Everybody's really quiet today. I can't answer any questions if people aren't going to ask them. It always takes that first few minutes for people to get here. I feel like I should be like, tap dancing or doing something to entertain people, like offer you, what is a nakshatra? Okay, that's a good question. And I actually did a video on that. It's called What Are Nakshatras Really? So do a Google search for What Are Nakshatras Really, Michael Reed Astrology, and you'll find the video. But to explain them clearly, they are 13-degree, 20-minute sections of the sky that relate to the fixed stars. Now, a lot of people like to say that they are subsections of the zodiac sign, but they're different from the zodiac, but they're joined together with the zodiac for the sake of horoscope interpretation. So what do I mean by they're different from the zodiac? All right, well, the zodiac is the ecliptic. Basically, it's 12 equal portions of the ecliptic as the sun moves from winter solstice in the northern hemisphere when the sun is down south to summer solstice when the sun is at its northernmost point in the summer hemisphere. And if you're in the southern hemisphere, it's vice versa. Basically, that path of the sun is split into 12 equal portions, and that's called the zodiac, right? Even if sidereal zodiac, or regardless of whether you're using a tropical zodiac, that's what the zodiac is. The difference with sidereal astrology is they're mapping those 12 sections of the ecliptic stars. Okay, but the actual stars themselves are a different sphere. They don't really move north-south. They move kind of east-west as the Earth rotates on its axis. So the nakshatras take that 360 degrees and they cut that into 27 equal portions. Some say 28, dependent upon if you use Abhijit. Okay, and those can get mapped back onto the ecliptic, but they're a separate entity. Okay, all right. Let's see what else we've got here. Deep Gandanta always gives bad result for material life. No, that's not the case. A planet in Gandanta being unproductive and something materially in your chart, dependent upon if you're looking at the Hora for finances, the Dashamsha for success, a weak planet is what creates that. not necessarily a planet being in Gandanta. Okay. So let's see what other questions we've got here. So somebody says, I'm Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra. Any valuable insights related to job for me, please? Okay, number one, and please don't feel like you have to apologize. It's okay. I'm not here to do horoscope interpretation. Basically, your astrological horoscope is a conglomerate of so many different charts if you're working with Vedic astrology. I can't just going on Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra. I can't tell you things related to your job because I don't know the state of your Jupiter. I don't know lots of various things that I would need to know in order to know how to give you advice for career. And please don't now go into a rush and try to type it onto the screen because really I need to see the entire horoscope. But I appreciate that people, are curious and they want to know. It's just I can't really give you that information clearly based upon one or two factors in your horoscope, which is why I responded to the person asking about deep Gandanta in the manner that I did. We need to know all the different factors that are there. Okay. Somebody's saying, will a Padavartana yoga between Saturn and Jupiter in Pisces and Capricorn harm the houses? If you're talking about Saturn in Capricorn or Jupiter in Capricorn and Saturn in Pisces, I think you're saying Jupiter in Pisces. Saturn and Jupiter in Pisces in Capricorn. Are you saying Saturn in Pisces and Jupiter in Capricorn? Regardless, a lot of things revolve around the well-being of those planets that have to be judged in specific ways, which that's actually, I'm going to talk about something related to yogas here in just a moment. I'm kind of just waiting for people to get here and to see that enough people are here for me to talk about it. But I'm not going to go deeply into your question because I'm unclear. Your views of Saturn behavior in Purva Ashadha, insight of spirituality and politics. I'm not going to do mundane stuff because I don't really dabble too deeply into mundane astrology because that requires looking at countries' charts. And I don't really do that. I feel it's more important to help the individual than it is to go too deeply into politics. I think the spirituality approach is much better. With Saturn in Purva Ashadha Nakshatra, though, on one level, it's always about humility. It's always about humility. And with Saturn, Ketu conjuncting each other, regardless of whether you're looking at it in Sagittarius or Capricorn, there are issues around authority. Okay. What is the best nakshatra for taking loan or credit? That depends on what phase of your life you're in. So Muhurta is one thing. You can pick a Muhurta for doing things, but equally, if you're in a period of time that's weak for you financially, the Muhurta isn't going to bring as good results as it would if you were in a strong period of time financially for your chart. Okay? And obviously, if you're thinking of a loan, you're probably experiencing one of those weaker financial times, which doesn't mean that you shouldn't seek a loan, but it depends on a lot of different factors, and it's not just the nakshatras. You need to look at things like Vara, Tithi, Nakshatra yogas, the well-being of the planets that are connected to the Varas, to the Tithis, and to the Nakshatras. So many different things in order to pick a good Muhurta. And it's not just the nakshatra, okay? Okay, just reading through people's questions, and please feel free to ask as many questions as you would like. Please refrain from asking them about your own horoscope or trying to get free horoscope advice here, okay? Because I'm aware when people are doing that, okay? Let's see. What does the placement of Rahu and Ketu in the D12 chart indicate in the D12 chart, as they are critical in that chart? Well, Ketu relates to how they used to approach things. Those things obviously get handed down to us on a certain level. Sometimes, albeit subconsciously, it gets handed down to us, okay? Rahu is what we need to do on many levels to resolve that ancestral karma. That's one of the factors that Rahu and Ketu relate to in the D12 chart. Okay, it's quiet here today, but I'm going to go ahead and go into the special announcement. Whenever I do these live appearances, people are always asking me to interpret certain yogas. And if you notice, I tend to not go deeply into that. And that's because yogas have to be qualified in a very certain way, or in a few different certain ways, I should say. And some yogas are more reliable just naturally than others are. Some yogas end up not really working, and mainly it's usually because the person who came up with them didn't really test them out. They saw one instance of that and they wrote it down. There are some yogas that are written in classical texts, obviously, that are extremely reliable. Interestingly enough, some classical texts, and it's not the fault of the author, it's the fault of people who are adding to these texts, get yogas in them that are not really so great either. But that aside, there are specific ways to qualify the strength of a yoga. And I'm going to be teaching a course not just on how to qualify the strength of yogas, but also on the best yogas to work with. This course starts in the spring. But starting in the spring, sorry, just closing my email because an email came up. But starting in the spring, oops, everybody disappeared on me. Okay, sure. But starting in the spring, I'm sorry, somebody, just give me 1 second. All right, let me just kind of come back over here. Starting in the spring, you can register for this course now. And actually, if you register for the course now, you're entitled to a discount on the course fees of 15% off the price of the course. Now, this course starts March 10th, I believe is the date. And if you register before the 14th of December, you get 15% off the fee for the entire course. To be taught on this course are how to work with the 144 Bhava yogas of Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra, the Kendra and Kona yogas, Nature of House Lords, Viparit Yoga, Artha, Kama, and Moksha yogas, Karaka Arishta yogas, lots of named yogas, so many different things. This is going to be a 44-week course where initially at the very beginning, we're going to go over the way to qualify the strength of the factors that are involved in a yoga. Because what you will see is there are many yogas that speak of beneficial effects, and in the same yoga they speak of challenging effects. So the strength of the planet is going to determine whether those beneficial effects are going to come out of that yoga or the more difficult effects are going to come out of that yoga, right? And those are for the yogas that tend to have a little bit of both, especially with things like the 144 Bhava yogas that Parashara gave us. Those tend to be a mixture of both, where they have some positive effects, but equally some difficult effects. Equally, quite often people get into these periods of life where they think a yoga is going to be active, like they may have a wealth yoga in their chart, and they start looking forward to this time thinking that it's going to bring them a lot of benefit. And that benefit never materializes. And that's usually because the planets involved just simply don't have the strength to produce the results that the individual is expecting. So I'm going to teach also about that on this particular course. You can register for this course by trimester for basically $329 per trimester is the full course fee. Also get 15% off of that fee, which will take the fee down to $279. And if you register before December 14th to take advantage of that discount, that price will be locked in for all subsequent trimesters. So if you're interested in registering for that particular course, you can do so at the link that I'm going to type into the chat window over here. It will give you information on the course, show you how to register, all those things. Okay. All right, let's see some more Nakshatra related questions from people. All of you are being quiet today. Is it my deodorant? I can't figure out what it might be, but you know, people are being quiet. Okay. So I can't answer any more questions until somebody puts some questions in the chat window. So don't be shy. Don't be afraid of doing so. There we go. How can we tell when we're moving towards Rahu versus Ketu in any actions that we take? I think what you might be asking, and you can clarify if you're not, please, is how can we tell when Ketu is producing a certain result? And how can we tell when Rahu is producing a certain result? How can we tell when we're being pulled by one of those forces? Well, Ketu, even though Ketu is about liberation. Oh, here, let's kind of step back with that. Because really, on a certain level, Ketu and Rahu are one and the same. They're just split in half. And that's why it's so confusing to know which of those factors is active, because really they're both active at the same time because they're one and the same. But to get an idea of which polarity you're really swinging towards, even though Ketu is the planet that gives our liberation, it is equally the planet that causes us to suppress ourselves from being liberated. It's the planet that shows those karmic patterns in the first place. It's the planet that shows that conditioning. So when we are reluctant to explore potentials or explore possibilities that could take us out of that repetitive pattern, or equally when we catch ourselves in a repetitive pattern, that's usually K2 that's active. Okay. When things are getting kind of crazy in our life, when things are kind of topsy-turvy, but hey, at least we're trying, right? That's more Rahu in our life, because Rahu represents that unknown factor that you have to venture into, that way that's not the status quo of your actions, right? Something that's different for you, right? So K2 represents what you're most familiar with, what you keep doing over and over again. Rahu represents what you need to do that's different. So Rahu will create all these scenarios that tend to make your life confusing, to show you that you're not in control, to hopefully kind of pull you towards exploring some potentials or possibilities because you have absolutely no choice but to do so. Okay. So it will pull you in that direction. And sure, things can get a little bit hectic to show you that you're not in control. It does that. So hopefully you're humble and you pay attention to what's going on. So I would say when things get really confusing, that's more Rahu in the equation. Okay. Equally, when you're feeling like I got to change things, that's more Rahu in the equation. Hope that answers your question. But really, on a certain level, they're both one and the same. Okay. So as I was saying, I'm going to mention it again. I'm going to start a course in the spring, March 10th. Basically 6:30 p.m. London time as usual, so as many people can show up as would like to, on the yogas and how to properly my yogas. That way you don't end up in a scenario where you see yogas in your chart or someone else's chart and you go, wow, I've got this time coming up. That means that yoga is going to be active. And then you get to that time and you find out, oh, nothing's really happening. Why isn't it happening? Usually because that planet doesn't have the strength to create it, and you have to understand how to qualify yogas properly. So again, on this course, we're going to talk about how to do that, in addition to talking about dozens, the 144 bhava yogas of Parashara, Kendrakona yogas, nature of house lords, all sorts of different things. We'll go over countless examples of these so that you can learn how to do it in a more productive manner. And if you register for this course before the 14th of December, you get a 15% discount on the course fee, and you can register either by trimester or paying in full. Okay, somebody hit me to, no, Ketu is not more of confusion. Let me explain. So, and I'll go into Bharani Nakshatra here in a moment, okay? Ketu basically relates to a security paradigm that we tend to go back into over and over again. Okay. So let's say you grew up in a household and there wasn't much money in your household. And you saw your parents constantly focusing on earning as much money as they could to take care of you and things like that. Well, you might grow up with this security paradigm of going, right, earning money, taking care of basic animal needs, that's the most important thing on the face of the earth. And so that becomes this pattern that you get into, to the extent that you either neglect your emotional needs or you neglect your right to follow a more inspiring lifestyle, right? So that part of you that gets stuck in that pattern that goes, basic animal needs are the most important thing, that's Ketu acting. Now, Ketu gets pulled on by Rahu. And what happens is Rahu kind of shows Ketu that, you know what, you can't stay in this position forever, right? So you may be in a position, let's use the basic animal needs scenario in order to explain it. You may be in this position of going, okay, that's the most important thing, just making sure I have enough money, just making sure that I can do this. Those are the things that are really important in life. And so you structure your life trying to keep it all in order because, hey, you don't want any difficulty to happen because that would emotionally upset you. So you think the best way to avoid that emotional upset is to structure, 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 structure. So then what happens is Rahu creates this pull on Ketu that makes you recognize, guess what? You can't keep your life in perfect structure all of the time. It's just not humanly possible. You can't micromanage everything. So I'm going to create an inability for you to do that, or I'm going to create some emotional trauma in your life because I'm trying to show you you've got to take care of your emotional needs too. That's Rahu acting. Ketu is more of the factor, the confusion of Ketu that you might be witnessing is more the factor that's feeling Rahu's pull, that's trying to show it that you can't really do this anymore. So I can see what you're saying, confusion on one level, but that confusion, in my opinion, is created by Rahu's pull. Okay. Okay, so somebody had asked a question about Bharani Nakshatra. So what do you want to know about Bharani Nakshatra? Bharani Nakshatra, if you understand Yama, you'll understand a lot about Bharani Nakshatra. Yama is often understood as the god that's related to death, but he's so much more than that. He's also known as Dharma Raja, which he makes sure that that our dharma is balanced. So if we haven't behaved dharmically, if we haven't worked on our karma to the level that we need to, I'm just trying to find the best words to explain this, then he will go, okay, well, you did this well, you did that well, and you did that well, but you didn't do this so well. So because you didn't do this so well, I'm going to kind of suggest that you have another lifetime to kind of go deal with this. So Yama's responsibility is to transition souls from one realm of existence to another. Bharani Nakshatra does that in a similar way. It can shift us from one phase of existence to another. It does so by creating a certain level of restraint that we experience as difficulty. Sometimes we even experience it as cruelty. But it's kind of like the difficulty of labor pains, right? You have to go through the labor in order to give birth. So you're wanting to give, and there's the connection that's there, you see, between the whole concept of birth, right? And the whole concept of rebirth and reincarnation. Those two things are connected. And that's, in a nutshell, is a clear concept of what Bharani Nakshatra is all about. It generally relates to transition or the individual going through difficulty, but that difficulty can be productive if there's a strong planet in that nakshatra and equally a strong Venus. But if Venus is afflicted, or if the planet that's in that nakshatra is afflicted, then the individual may just feel like they're suffering for no reason. Okay. All right, let's see some other questions that might be here. So somebody's asking about Raj yogas. I'm going to go into Raj yogas on the course. I don't like going into yogas here because I feel that people go run away with information and they take it and they don't learn how to qualify yogas. And I'm not really into people doing that, which is why I'm teaching a course on it. So if you missed that concept that I was talking about earlier, I am starting a course in the spring, but you can register now and get a discount. If you visit this page, you can take advantage of the discounted price, which is already listed on the course registration buttons at the link that I'm entering into the window now. But that's why I just don't want to go too deeply into Raj yogas. It depends on the types of Raj yogas that you're talking about, and there are several different types of Raj yogas. Basically, they're royal yogas that are known to produce success in some way, shape, or form or another. Okay, so let's see some other questions that are here. And by the way, if anybody wants to schedule a consultation with me, you can also do that, and I'll get all the marketing out of the way here in just one second. If you're interested in scheduling a consultation with me, you can do so at the link I'm going to enter here. Okay, there we go. Blatant self-promotion out of the way. Let's see, is there any connection between Anuradha and Revati nakshatras? Well, I guess, Chris, it depends on what you mean. There's a connection between every nakshatra. As a matter of fact, the energies of the nakshatras tend to build one upon the other. Okay. If we understand, Anuradha nakshatra is a nakshatra that's tamasic at its foundation, though. With Anuradha nakshatra, there's a much deeper realization that, hey, I'm here, I'm separate. From this space of separation, though, I can feel a great level of devotion, right? In order to attain that thing that I'm devoted to, whether that's devotion to God or whether that's like devotion to your car, devotion to your family, devotion to your job, whatever it relates to in your chart. There has to be this realization that I need to tap deeper into my potential in order to create that. Now with Revati Nakshatra, that's a little bit different. Okay, Revati Nakshatra is at its foundation a Sattvic Nakshatra. Okay, so because it is a Sattvic Nakshatra, it is closer to, and I have to be careful with my words because it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody who has a planet in Revati Nakshatra is super ultra spiritual. As a matter of fact, they can be overly sensitive sometimes. But it's more of a Sattvic Nakshatra. Okay, so its processes are much more related to trust. Or I should say that part of the lessons with Revati Nakshatra are trust and faith that you'll be taken care of. So it's about surrender. Whereas with Anuradha Nakshatra, sure, there's devotion, but there's a deeper degree of recognition of the separation that's there, if you follow what I mean. Okay. In addition to that, sure, they're both Mridu and Maitram nakshatras, which means soft and friendly, but one is a Mula or plant kingdom nakshatra, which is all about nourishment. And interestingly enough, that's not Revati, that's Anuradha nakshatra. And Revati is a Jiva nakshatra, believe it or not. It's like that Jiva type of energy, and Jiva can be very assertive, right? But because it's soft and friendly and equally assertive, it's the kind of person that would go, everybody should be nice and gentle to everyone, just like I am. Okay. So that's assertive too. Okay. All right. So let's see some other questions that are here. I may have another 5-10 minutes here. Let's see some questions. I'm reading over. Please don't feel, bothered if I don't get to your question. I try to get to as many as I can. Does Ketu in the 11th house mean you won't have steady income? Well, I think first we have to define steady income, okay? Because really, on a certain level, over the course of our life, we always go through periods of not having steady income. Income fluctuates. Some weeks it's better, some weeks it's not, and that's fluctuation. But you mean very unsteady income? It doesn't always mean that. It would depend on the strength of Ketu's dispositor in not just the Rashi chart, but equally in the Hora chart and the Chatratamsha chart. Okay, so let's see some other questions that we might have. Okay, so somebody's asking a question which I may not go all the way into. So somebody says, so if you're Anuradha Nakshatra ascendant and your Saturn is in Jyeshtha, bad in astrology. There's challenge. It's definitely challenge, but there's no such thing as bad. Right? God doesn't do that. God gives us things that are good and things that are there for our evolution and things that are there for us to grow from. God doesn't go, I'm going to give you something bad. I'm going to punish you because you're a horrible person. It's not like that. You know, God wants us to learn. So let me read over your question further. So if you're Anuradha Nakshatra and your Saturn is in Jyeshtha Nakshatra, Jyeshtha Nakshatra is not a quote unquote bad nakshatra. It's like people need to get over this concept, I feel, of bad nakshatra, good nakshatra. Okay. Jyeshtha nakshatra can be a very excellent nakshatra. It can give you really sharp insight. It can give you penetrating logic. It can give you so many good things, right? It's not just a bad nakshatra. Yeah, you have to understand that everything is not bad. Okay, there's no just like there's no good and bad signs, and just like there's no good and bad planets, there's no good and bad nakshatras. Okay, a lot of when a nakshatra produces difficult things is related to the fact that its dispositor is somehow compromised. Okay, so I'm gonna have let's see. I'm going to have to go here because I'm running out of time. But just a reminder, my qualifying yogas course, which is called, interestingly enough, what is it called? How to make planetary yogas work is what it's called. Okay, how to make planetary yogas work. Because I called it that because people often expect things from yogas and then they don't get them, and then they just go, well, that's not a good yoga. And sure, there are some yogas that are not the best, that weren't really tested, but those tried and tested ones, like the ones from many of them from Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra, except the ones that were added by people later on, which weren't really Parashara stating it. Like the 144 Bhava Yogas, those are good from Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra, and many other things in there that really do work. You just have to know how to judge them properly. And the problem is most people don't know how to judge them properly. And that's what I'm teaching this entire course on. So even if you don't feel that you can register for the entire course in one go, if you really want to know how to work with yogas, if that's really important to you, I do suggest registering for this course because you can register by trimester. And if you register before the 14th of December, you get a 15% discount. If you visit the page that I'm going to give you a link to right now, you'll see the already discounted price per trimester and for payment in full. With the trimester fee, if you pay for it with the 15% discount, you get that 15% discount for every subsequent trimester. And obviously, if you pay for it in full, you get the 15% discount. Okay. Okay, so I'm also going to give you the link to my astrological services page. Right, so just before I do that, somebody said, my view is that Ketu is headless and it gives confusion and mistakes in life. While at the same time, Rahu does the same, you see, because Rahu has no stomach. It can't digest things. That's confusion too. When you can't integrate things, that's lack of being able to digest something. And so Rahu needs Ketu for that capacity to digest things. But Ketu, because it has no head, is equally blind. It can't see things. It's a blind planet. So it gets stuck in its processes and stuck like a stick in the mud sometimes. Okay. So I'm not necessarily trying to say you're wrong. You have your own opinion of it. I'm just, I'm telling you what I've noticed from working with lots of different charts, that's how it generally tends to work for the individual people that are there, which isn't me trying to be arrogant. I hope you don't take it that way. It's just more just giving you my own take on it from what I've seen. Okay, so here's the link to my services page. If you'd like to schedule with me, you can do so through the link that I'm going to type in right here. So until next time, everybody, I will talk to you soon. Please check out my course page if you've got time. And please, as always, do take the very best care of yourself. No, do take the very best care of yourself. Bye now.